What feels like an irreversible fracture can, and when addressed with humility and openness, become a turning point toward deeper intimacy in your marriage.
Soundstripe.
Hello and welcome to Navigating with Key. My name is Kenneth Enojo Asenime, K-E-A-Key, and I'm glad to welcome you to another edition of this program. So today we'll continue from where we stopped last week, where we're talking about the letter we received, and we'll try to provide some advice to our dear friend who was seeking help on how to navigate a particular situation. First, let me start by saying thank you to everyone who has, out of goodwill, provided some form of guidance on how she can navigate the situation. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So for today, after reading the letter, we began discussing your central question, which was, did I cheat on my husband? And I provided an answer that day saying yes. But now today I want to dive into reasons why I said yes. Why there was no indication of sexual involvement, sexual infidelity. The truth is, human beings are emotional by nature. And marriage is not only a physical covenant, but also an emotional one. And it's something we all need to know and understand. Marriage itself is not only physical, but it's also an emotional involvement. When a significant portion of emotional intimacy, emotional vulnerability, if we say that, our time and support is redirected from one spouse to another person, particularly in a secret manner. When I mean secret, most times it's not because you intended it to start up as secret, but just because you know that your spouse might not like the knowledge of what's going on. You try to keep it quiet. You see, when that kind of thing happens, it may constitute what we commonly refer to as emotional infidelity. Based on the information in your letter, there are elements that suggest this boundary may have been crossed. However, it will be incomplete and unfair to stop at the conclusion without understanding how you arrived there. Let's look beyond the outcome and examine the pathway to which you got to where you are. Let's begin with your relationship timeline. From your letter, you said you were friends for 5 years, dated for 4, and have been married for 6. That is 15 years of shared history. And I want you to pause with that. I want you to just stop and think about it. 15 years of shared history. I would gently encourage you to revisit those earlier seasons of your relationship. What qualities in him moved the friendship forward? From being friends to dating him. What qualities did you find? What during the dating phase affirmed your decision to marry him? Often, the qualities we feel are missing today were once the very foundations we valued the most. From your description, your husband appears to be reserved, present, responsible, and consistent. These are not insignificant traits. Many individuals actively seek partners who are sturdy and private. But it is important to note at this moment that all the image of your husband we are creating is based solely on your account, right? So I've never met your husband, I've never seen him. So whatever image I have in my head of him is based on what you have described. And what you have described suggests a stability rather than neglect. So marriage, however, introduces complexity. Growth changes people. Exposure to new friendships, environments, and experiences shapes expectations, and sometimes these changes are unknown to us. And it can become unfair when one partner evolves in response to new influences and unconsciously expects the other to adapt without shared dialogue. Remember our two foundational principles, which we call the two C's, right? We said these two C's are communication and compromise. Well, putting it in the right order, compromise and communication. And without them, emotional distance grows quietly. There is also a well-known relationship dynamic, often referred to as the 80-20 principle. In many committed relationships, roughly 80% of what sustains the partnership consists of stability, trust, and foundational qualities. The remaining 20% represents unmet preferences or areas of differences. Now, the risk arises when the 20% becomes overtly more attractive, particularly when encountered in someone outside the marriage. And when that happens, we realize that the 80% is often taken for granted. It is possible that the emotional connection you formed outside the relationship addressed a certain unmet need, right? And in your letter, you did say that this friend of yours understood he could vibe with your kind of conversation. But you see, that does not make you immoral. It does not make you immoral. It makes you human. However, once a relationship becomes something you cannot, I emphasize, you cannot comfortably disclose to your spouse, it has likely crossed into unsafe territory. A helpful indicator is transparency. If the friendship cannot withstand full visibility within the marriage, it requires reevaluation. The encouraging aspect of your letter is your awareness. You recognize the distress this relationship has caused and the necessity of ending this relationship, right? This outside emotional attachment. That insight is significant. However, ending the external relationship alone does not fully repair the breach. Healing requires dialogue. That's where communication comes in. It requires dialogue. So what would I do? I would recommend a structured, honest conversation with your husband. Communicate accountability without defensiveness. This is very important. So communicate accountability. When you talk like you want things to become better. Don't talk and create a wall and defend your actions. No. Take responsibility of the actions, right? Express what you were feeling, not as justification, but as context. All right? Apologize where appropriate. Invite him into the process of strengthening the marriage moving forward. Often, partners are more perceptive than we assume. What feels like an irreversible fracture can, and when addressed with humility and openness, become a turning point toward deeper intimacy in your marriage. Marriage thrives when both individuals move from opposition to partnership, being on the same side of the problem, looking at the situation from the same set of rules. All right. So I would dare say, when you sit down and have this communication with him, you might find out that these differing personality you're having, he may have noticed it himself and have been trying to put things in place to upgrade, if I if I may use that word, to what you would appreciate. So I would say, sit down, have that conversation, and let your marriage come alive once again. Right? So what has happened is not supposed to define what your marriage is. It's supposed to help you refine it. All right? So that is my advice to you. Yes, I know you feel bad about what may have happened. You feel like somewhere in your heart, you feel like something has actually gone wrong. But I want you to understand that you're human, right? We all err in different ways and we all have different personalities. And there's nothing wrong in you wanting more out of your marriage. But I say we must do it in a way that helps the marriage, not just us in a selfish way, all right? So what we need to do, like I've said, just sit down, have a honest conversation with your husband, with your spouse. Talk to him, let him understand why what happened. And like we said earlier, don't do it trying to justify what you have done, just to provide a context, right? And then if you need to apologize for anything, don't be too proud to do it. Go ahead and apologize. Have that conversation, because it's important to have a common ground where both of you can live comfortably. Remember what we said in the part one of this program. We said having a common ground where to have your life live in joy, peace, and harmony. I may not have used those exact words, but what I'm trying to say here is that compromise is key. All right. And the only way you know what to compromise is when you have good communication. So communication and compromise is key at this point. All right. So that's about it for today. And I strongly believe that there might be someone out there probably navigating this same situation, or people who may find themselves in this kind of situation sometime in the future. It's expected that these should provide some kind of guide on how to handle these kind of situations. So thank you so much to everyone who has sent in a comment to help, and to someone we secretly call Auntie Dickiness. I want to personally thank you for your voice note. You spent about an hour providing some kind of guidance on the situation, and I would like you to know that most of it has been communicated to her, and she deeply appreciates it. So you can leave a comment in the comment section, and tell me what you feel about our resolution, about this, and let me know if there is something you want us to communicate to our dear friend, and we could still do that. But the truth is, what the information she has gotten from this medium, she really appreciates it, and it has helped her. And I would, by her permission, continue to give us updates on the situation. So, till I come your way again next time, my name is Kenneth Enioja Senime, Keaki, and I'm saying have a lovely week. Goodbye.